Marita, ya si querés ponete en el canal correcto para traducir al inglés, ¿eh?
Sí, yo ya estoy en canal inglés. Sí, estoy en canal inglés. ¿Me escuchan? ¿Me escuchan, canal inglés? Hola, los escuché. ¿Me escuchan, canal inglés? Ya estoy en canal inglés. Ya estoy en canal inglés.
Perfecto, ahí ya te escucho.
Listo,
Gracias.
bárbaro.
Gracias. Lorena, acordate que estás muteada, ¿eh?
Avísame cuando quieras que me desmutee.
Te va a dar el pie la presentadora.
Muy bienvenidos a todos, muy bienvenidas a todas.
Welcome, everyone. This is our conference that we are starting, the 12th conference for Vital Voices Southern Cone. I am Martina Rua. I am very happy and honored to be here with you this morning. Perhaps you're getting ready your favorite drink, your tea, your coffee. Well, join us because we are going to share a morning where we'll be reflecting on our gender biases. What are the biases that we have? We all have biases because we have been educated in a certain way and we come with our biases. Men and women have influenced in us and our biases. So we will try to recognize them so that we can hopefully change them. So welcome for joining us. We see that our streaming audience is growing. We have people in the audience from all over Latin America, Argentina, Bolivia, Paraguay, Chile, Uruguay. You are all welcome. Thank you for joining us. And of course, everyone from every country is welcome. The pandemic has been very challenging, but it also gave us the opportunity to get together across borders. Latin America has joined Vital Voices in this conference. We want Vital Voices to be the voices of the speakers we will hear today, but particularly we are interested in you. You will be the leading players in this conference. We want to know your opinion, your feedback, your views, and what resonates with you during this conference. So please stay connected and stay tuned on social media. We will share stories. We have a hashtag, Jornada Anual, annual meeting or annual conference, VVA, gender and communication, so that you will also have an active role. So are you ready to get to know the speakers today? I am very excited to share with you the names of the people who will be speaking today. We would like to thank them very especially because our speakers will share their views with us. We will have Lorraine Harrington from Kathleen, Sherry Westing from Sesame Workshop, Pretty Herman from Change.org, Margaret Dawson from Red Hat, Chandra Jisi from InMat Foundation, Francisco Tobias from Citi, Ludovico Martin from Renault, Paula Narvaez from UN Women, and all the women that have trusted Vital Voices over the years, and they make it possible for us to join across borders. So we would like to thank each of the sponsors who are supporting us and help us connect with each of you. The main sponsors, Logitech, NewTek, Oracle, Red Hat, sponsors City Pharmacity, Group Renault, Johnson & Johnson, Saban, SMS, and our media partners, Partner Novelli, and the institutions that support us, like Chicas, Intecnología, Globant, Link Argentina, Uber, the Industrial Union of the Province of Buenos Aires, the Women Economic Forum, Women B Solutions, and Junus, IU. These organizations make it possible for us to share this morning together. If you are following the YouTube streaming, you have two channels available, English and Spanish, but please follow us regardless of the channel. So you choose the language. We will be focusing on gender bias, I was saying earlier today. We all have, as individuals, certain biases. We need to recognize them so that we can be true change makers to break down those barriers and biases and have a fresh new look. We will have some welcoming words. The welcoming remarks will be delivered by Alice Nelson, the CEO of Vital Voices, and Lorena Piazza, the CEO of Vital Voices South Cone.
In Washington, D.C. I'm Elise Nelson, President and CEO and one of the co-founders of Vital Voices Global Partnership. I am thrilled to be joining you, as I know I am sending congratulations from all of us at Vital Voices for your huge conference and just the incredible success that you've had over the last 12 years in reaching out and truly using your power to empower thousands of women across Argentina and the Southern Cone. What started from just a few women coming together and saying we want to use our power to truly empower others has grown into a powerful movement across the region. I know over the next day you're going to be exploring issues of gender bias, issues of communication, of equality, of economic development. One thing remains clear as I look around the world today, and it is that women lead differently. And that difference is more needed in our world than ever before. As countries grapple to deal with this global pandemic, as we strive to build a stronger economy and society, one thing remains clear: we can't do it without women. A recent McKinsey & Company study stated that if we could just get women up to the level of men in terms of economic opportunities, we could increase global GDP by $28 trillion by 2025. Those are impressive numbers. But at Vital Voices, we know that women are not just an economic force. We are truly a global leadership force. Women are collaborative in our leadership. We are empowering. We are compassionate. We are empathetic. We cross those lines that typically divide, and we lead through bold ideas and bold action. And we understand a simple truth, that the only meaningful measure of power is the extent of its positive impact on our communities, our countries, and our world. Again, huge congratulations from all of us at Vital Voices, and good luck with the day ahead. All of us are incredibly proud of all you've accomplished.
Bienvenidas.
Welcome to this conference. This is our 12th conference. I would like to thank you all for joining us, men and women who are part of the Argentine and South Cone chapter, who have joined us from Argentina, Bolivia, Uruguay, Paraguay, and so many other countries in the world because of this virtual connection. Thank you, Alice, for inviting us, for choosing us, for identifying the first women in this movement, so that we are part of this chapter, of this project, of this big network, Vital Voices, Voces Vitales Argentina. We identify women with leadership potential. We give them training, tools. We enable and empower them, giving them visibility and connecting them in a major network. So that is the work that we do at Voces Vitales, Vital Voices Argentina. That's why we have our mentoring walks. We are the chapter with the largest number of walks. This year, we reached 20 cities in South Cone with more than 1,500 women walking and participating in these initiatives. We also participate in programs with Mujeres Transformadoras, Transforming Women, and together with Facebook, we also have an initiative. So we are helping them, enabling women and connecting them. Our big program, mentoring program, it's our flagship program. The mentoring program this year, through virtual media, enabled the participation of 36 women. We thank you, Alice, for all of this and for letting us join you. Your message is very dear to us. It has touched our hearts. I am a person that tries to see the positive side of things. We try to see the opportunities in this pandemic. This has accelerated many situations, has changed our context and our living conditions. And it has also made us think about our road ahead. How do we want to lead from now on? And I believe that with our network, with our alumni club, with all the women that have participated in our programs, we are making a reality our ideals. That's why we have chosen the theme for this conference, which is communication and bias, gender bias. Gender bias appeared as a taboo or as a habit, and they have become ingrained in our minds and societies. But we need to find change makers, drivers of change in each and every individual. We need to say, stop bias, interrupt bias. We need to build new thinking, new ways of action. We need to free ourselves from biases. They are not good. They have to disappear. We have to get rid of them. So in the same way, this terrible pandemic has brought terrible events, the new opportunities have been accelerated. We have the power to change the situation our world faces. As Alice has said, growth potential is enormous. For each woman, an investment is made, growth is multiplied. Women and men can be change drivers so that women will not only access decision-making positions, but also will help communities grow from the grassroots. We need to be change makers. Let's say no to bias. Let's say yes to our ability to do things. We all can do it with efforts and hard work. We can make it. So let's enjoy this training, this networking, this conference we have today, and let's take advantage of this virtual opportunity so that in the future we will come face to face and embrace each other again. So welcome to the 12th conference of Vital Voices Argentina and South Cone. Thank you, Martina.
Muchas gracias, Alice. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Alice, and thank you, Lorena. So these welcoming remarks have been very enlightening. We have been working as a network with many women as mentors, mentees, sharing walks, sharing events. We have shared lots of opportunities, and of course, we hope more people will join us. Today, we have focused on communication and gender bias. I would like to introduce the first guest speaker today. She's Lorraine Harrington, the president and CEO of Catalyst. She has sound experience in technology and innovation. She has held high-ranking positions in Silicon Valley, as well as in NGOs and governmental agencies. She was a CEO of 2 startups in Silicon Valley, and she had executive positions in companies such as IBM. President Obama named her the representative in the State Department of the US in the Academy of Sciences of New York. She also played a major role in the STEM program, 1000 Futures. She is a proud mother of Glenn and Laura, and she enjoys spending time with her grandchildren. And I'm sure that many of you enjoy the same family time as she does. And we also have the Vice President of Vital Voices Argentina and member of the Executive Board who will be introducing Lorraine. We will talk about gender bias and Catalyst.
I admire your work and that your career is a model for all women who are looking to play an important role in advancing women's rights in global businesses. Throughout your extensive career, you have held important positions in the public sector, in the private sector, but also in civil society. And now you are here in Catalyst, in this organization that advocates for women in the workplace. Could you tell us a little more about the work that Catalyst is doing?
Maria, thank you. And I first want to say I am so delighted to be here. When I was at the State Department, I traveled all over the world. I've spent a lot of time in South America, and we're excited because Catalyst is focused on supporting multinational companies globally to help advance women in the workplace. So the multinationals, we are very interested in helping them wherever they are. And we do 3 things. First of all, we have research, and Catalyst has been around since 1962. And we have a very extensive library of research around how to advance women. And we're focusing now more on what does that mean globally? What are the issues in specific countries around the world? And we're collaborating to understand that experience, especially around issues of intersectionality, because they really differ. And when we say intersectionality, what I mean is, your identity, whether you identify by your race, your gender, your ethnicity, all these different things come into play and need to be understood. So we do research. We also have a very broad set of learning and knowledge tools and measurements tools that help companies on their diversity and inclusion journey. And lastly, we have a global community of over 500 corporations, and we bring them together. Now in this virtual world, we have opportunities to bring people together in new and different ways, so that we can learn from each other, so that we can champion the mission together. And as it relates to our global partnership, we just announced an expansion with partners around the world, 3 new partners. One of them is Comunidad Mujer, that's in Chile. And we also announced a partnership with UN Global Compact to support educating people on best practices for diversity and inclusion. So with our partners, we will be working to making sure we have a really holistic approach to how we can move the mission together around advancing women.
Perfect. Oh, the work was surely much harder for women when you started your career than it is now. But we're still facing systematic barriers for women. What are the main obstacles women still face nowadays?
I like to say, if you think about when I joined into the workforce in the late 70s, I was really a beneficiary of the women's movement at that time that brought many women into the workplace. Felice Schwartz, who started Catalyst in 1962, was simply trying to have jobs available to women who had college education beyond just being a teacher, an administrator. That was basically a secretary. There were very limited options. By the time I got into the workforce, there were so many options available. But when you look at the pipeline, you look at the top of the organization, even today, we still have a lot of work to do. We are now at the highest point ever in terms of the number of women that are CEOs of Fortune 500 and S&P companies. At the Fortune 500, we're at 7.8%. And that's a 24% growth from 2 years ago. That's really fantastic. But we still have a pyramid that looks like this. So it may be 7.8% at the top. It's like about 25% in the middle, and then it's 50% at the bottom. At least in the United States, it's close to 50%. At least before COVID, it was close to 50%. So we have a lot of work to do to make sure we have the right policies and practices and commitment to have more opportunity throughout business. And when you look at it from an ethnicity standpoint, in the United States, women of color, and that includes Hispanic women in particular, are really, really low. There's only 3 women of color in the Fortune 500 running those organizations. And so there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, absolutely. This year, as you know, communication and gender is the topic to start the conversation in the Southern Cone that we propose. Our objective is to review the gender biases, perceptions, and beliefs to actively begin on an individual and collective evolution. While we know that much progress has been made on gender equality in the workplace, we know that there are still many unconscious biases that are deeply entrenched in the work culture. In Catalyst, you deliver effective programs to reduce unconscious bias. Could you please tell us better about the new program that you have launched, that Catalyst have launched on gender biases, the gender bias correct program?
Yes, I'd be delighted to talk about that. For International Women's Day the beginning of the year, we launched an unconscious bias program called Bias Correct, hashtag Bias Correct. In fact, you can Google it on the internet. And what we did is it highlights and explains to me what bias is all about so that people can really understand what we're talking about. So you can take your headshot. Any of you out there can do this. In fact, many of the companies we work with actually did campaigns around that. And then you can choose a word that compares how a woman acting in a certain way may be perceived versus a man. For example, I have a poster actually in my office that was part of the campaign we did. I chose the word aggressive versus assertive. So people perceive women who are assertive as being aggressive, and aggressive has a negative connotation. Now, that is because of unconscious bias about norms about how women are supposed to behave. And women are supposed to take care. Men are supposed to take charge. We don't feel comfortable with women being very assertive. So therefore, it's very hard for women. It's a very narrow range they can really be effective in. So that's really unconscious bias. So our campaign that is available right on our website for you to use highlights that.
Most of the time, people aren't aware of their own biases. What can we do in order to identify this as it is something really unconscious?
As you say, everyone has unconscious bias. It is not a bad thing to have biases. In fact, it's a coping mechanism because we need to quickly understand, different things in the world. So it is part of our psychology, but we need to build awareness around those biases as they relate to how we interact in the world. So unconscious bias training is one way of doing that. Perhaps one of the most effective programs that Catalyst has is our MARC program, Men Advocating Real Change. We understood a while ago that, in order to advance women, we really have to engage men. And we need to engage men to be allies for us. But in order to do that, we have really got to get them to understand their unconscious bias and what they are actually doing, because most men and most everyone they don't think they're biased. They don't until they really appreciate it. So our MARC training, we work with companies and we work with mostly men to go through a process of helping them understand their unconscious bias and then giving them the tools that they need to become allies for women and for any underrepresented group, so that they can be effective at doing things like sponsorship or interrupting bias or doing the things they need in their hiring practices so that they can become advocates. In fact, on December 3rd and 4th, we're having our first virtual global MARC summit, which I invite any of you out there to attend, because in this global world, we don't have to go anyplace. You can attend globally. You can go on our website, catalyst.org, and find out about the summit and get a taste for this, because we're going to be talking a lot about exactly these topics.
I like the idea of men being included in this role. What else we can do in order to include men to be more inclusive, and that they be part of this changing culture?
Well, the truth of the matter is, the numbers show is that it's largely still men that are in the leadership and power positions. So we've got to start at the top of the organizations to really get the leaders to understand why it is important to advance women. And it's important because diverse thinking and diverse teams make better decisions. It's important because all the numbers show that companies that have more diverse teams, more women in leadership, do better. And just practically, if you do not have the right practices to include everyone, you're not going to get the best talent. So what's been exciting recently as a result of COVID is that there's much more awareness around equity. There's much more of a commitment and intentionality, but it really starts at the top, getting to those top leaders who can not only do they need to talk the talk, they need to walk the talk to make that difference.
Yeah, and the responsibility of the leaders as well. You have spent most of your career in the technology industry. How do we ensure that technology doesn't bring in biases?
Well, Maria, that's a great.
Not easy.
And coming from where my lived experience in Silicon Valley is something I've thought about a lot. In fact, in coming into Catalyst, I added a whole research pillar around the future of work and looking at those issues. And there's quite a few issues in the future of work. Flexible and remote workplaces was one of them. Leading with empathy is another. How we upskill and reskill is another. But this idea of technology, and is it our friend or is it a problem, is an issue as well. So as we start to work more and more with technology, we've got to build diverse teams who can understand the biases and not build them into this. Now, this has been an issue for a long time, whether it's products like building seatbelts and not having, a seatbelt that's for a pregnant woman, for example, or doing clinical trials that are only with men. You've got to have teams of people who are aware of these biases so they don't build it into whatever products or services they're going to be having. Now, the issue with AI and machine intelligence is if you put data in that has bias, then it's just going to multiply and create more biases. And there was an issue at Amazon where they built an AI engine to look at resumes, and the resumes were all biased that they had selected to begin with. So then the machine learning was throwing out all the women. That was not a good thing. So AI can be a real friend if it's constructed in a way that is very clear on not integrating biases. They can help us identify candidates. And for example, with this bias correct campaign I just mentioned, we have a plugin that you can download that works with Slack, and it bias corrects your chat. So tech can be used for good, but it's also dangerous because it can magnify bias issues.
Yeah, let me say that I have downloaded the Bias Correct and I am using it in my Slack, and I really believe yes, and sometimes I found it wow. It's amazing how we can open our eyes and see micro biases or micro messages that we never imagined how it is affecting us or our beliefs. So in some way, I think that what you are saying is it is about knowledge. We need to know, we need to open our eyes, we need to understand better and change our beliefs in order to start correcting the way we think and the way we can include others. Is it correct?
Yeah, I think it's about awareness. I think it's about helping people have an emotional commitment to this, because people tend to be defensive. So taking down those defenses that, of course, I'm not biased, and helping people understand that everyone is, and then connecting them to the business and the and the, equity issues. In my mind, equity is one of the top issues of this century. As technology is expanding, we are getting more and more money to the top people because it's a virtuous cycle, and it's not coming down broadly. We have to solve these equity issues. I think this is why so many top leaders in the business world are really focused on this. They realize that they need to frankly, to even sell their products and services. Large companies are not only about the bottom line now, they're about stakeholder capital, they're about their employees, they're about their supply chains, they're about the communities that they serve, and they're about their customers. And who they are and how they do that is going to make a really big difference. So, the emotional connection and commitment to overcome, deep-seated prejudice and do the hard work to make those change takes hard work and motivation, and making that emotional connection, I think, is a large part of it. Another area that I think is really critical to this is empathy. Now, empathy is really a superpower. It is something that everyone's talking about in the times of COVID, that you have to have empathy to understand the lived experiences of the people around you and to help them along. And it's interesting that empathy was something we identified before COVID in our future of work efforts, because empathy and also soft skills in general are even going to be more critical when we're interacting with machines more. So, I think there's a high motivation right now to really do better at that, because we're all in this together and people are feeling that. And we're in people's homes, and we're seeing their children, and we're understanding the common experience we're having going through this global crisis. There's never been a crisis that touches everyone on the planet. And so I do think we're in a really unique time to really, for people to really double down on these things that are needed to move to the next level around equity.
I love it. Awareness, empathy, and and commitment. Great. Is there anything else you want to add, or any message you would like to give to our audience, all these women and men in South America, or a call to action to become involved?
Yes, I would love to. Well, when I joined Catalyst, which was a little over 2 years ago, I really thought that was the moment for really significant change. As I said, when you look at historically, I came in on the coattails of the women's movement that was early in the 70s. But I feel that today we have even more opportunity to change. Now, at that time, there was the Me Too movement. There was the rapid change through technology on the jobs of the future work and the reskilling. There was changes in attitudes that Millennial and Gen Z have. And there was a move towards shareholder capital, which was a lot. But now that we have COVID, as we've been talking about, we really have a moment for quantum change. I like to quote Lenin on this, because Lenin has a statement that says, sometimes nothing happens for decades, and sometimes decades happen in weeks. And, change happens episodically, at home, in the office. We have an opportunity to take this moment and really create the future we want it to be. So I think it's a call to action for all of us to not let a crisis, to create the future we want it to be out of this crisis.
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, and you said sometimes we have been preparing for decades for 1 week to act during 1 week. No?
Exactly. That is the way things happen. Sometimes people say to me, well, it's going to be 200 years before women are at par in the C-suite. But that's not the way it happens. We got 24% change in the last year. Even I was looking at the numbers, all of a sudden it started to really go up. Same thing in the boardroom. So we've got to seize the moment. And, Abraham Lincoln said the best way to create the future is to make it. We need to make our future.
Yes. Well, love this conversation. And I keep with this. We need to create the future. We need to do. We need to be involved. We need to empathize. We need to commit. And we need to be aware of biases on everything that we want to change. Thank you very, very much. Love your passion, your commitment, and all that you are doing in Catalyst. Thank you, Lorraine.
Well, thank you so much. And I hope next time I can come down to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, and enjoy myself. You know, my most favorite place in the world is Iguazu Falls. I was there. It was gorgeous, and I love Rio. So I'll look forward to coming when we can get on planes in the future.
We would love to see you here, to be with you here. Next time, we will guess. Next time will be presential summit. Thank you. Thank you very much.
If a woman exhibits what are considered more masculine behaviors, such as being assertive, speaking out, they're described very differently.
A man in my office felt as though my tone was off-putting and abrasive.
What we found in our work around unconscious gender bias is that women really face a double bind.
I really felt as though it was important to be liked in my job. And so I really took it to heart. And I started to change the way that I spoke to people, but it didn't feel natural. My natural way is to actually be certain and to be confident and to be very clear on what I expect from people.
Damned if you do, doomed if you don't. Unconscious gender biases has a direct link as well to the gender pay gap.
It was 10 or 12 years ago. And I'd taken on a couple more accounts, had won a good amount of new business for the office, and it came time for review. And I asked my manager, who was a woman, whether or not I could be looked at for a raise. The response I got was that I was being difficult and that I was asking for more than what I deserved. And I was heartbroken. I was already tired because I had a baby at home and I was working really hard. But it was heartbreaking.
For women of color, they face all of these barriers that all women face, but you layer on the complexities and the biases against various race ethnicities.
As a woman and as a woman of color and as an African-American woman, those are three things against me. And when I get in certain rooms, I am invisible. And that is very painful.
What we've found is that unconscious gender bias gets into talent management systems. It impacts career advancement.
In the agency side, I would watch as male counterparts would get promoted or would get included in meetings I wasn't getting included in. You didn't see as many women at the top to emulate or, aspire to. That was tough.
Probably a year out from graduating from university, and I was working my very first job in management consulting. And I remember having a performance review, and my manager sat me down. He said, "You're so competent. You do such a good job." He goes, "You have to get to know people a little bit more and be a little bit more open." And I said, "What do you mean? I have great relationships." And he goes, "I think you're a little bit too cold."
Unconscious gender bias is baked into society, into our perceptions and beliefs.
There have been times where I have been told that my tone is too strong. Most of the men don't ever get talked to about their tone. Most men don't get spoken to about how they show up, but women do.
If you're told that your normal, natural reaction is not appropriate, then all of a sudden you lose all belief and credibility in yourself.
Unconscious gender bias impacts all of us. You can be super progressive. You can be very supportive of women's advancement, yet you still have gender biases. So you have to be very intentional in order to recognize what they are and really see what's happening when they play out. At Catalyst, we come from the perspective that it's not the woman that needs to be changed, but the workplace environment and the culture and the barriers that are institutionalized that need to be taken down.
Muchas gracias, Lorraine. Muchas gracias, María Laura, por esta.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Maria Laura, for this first talk. So many things. Don't forget to use the social media because we want to gather your voices. What has been resonating from the first talk? How many topics? Talking about biases and how women and men behave. How do we create technology? AI, which is increasingly getting embedded into our behavior, and what biases are we carrying? And this big program that they're running at Catalyst and the messages that we listen to on the video, how many do we name others and how many are we named by others? She's cold, she's not very warm. She doesn't look like we would like her to. She's too big, she's too short. How many biases do we have when we look at people? These days, I've been doing my own bias correct. We encourage you all to do it. The hashtag is bias correct, and you will be able to post one of your pictures, a picture of yours, and see what it tells. I've done my own homework. I posted one of the pictures, and it said emotional or drama-like. What if we take a new look, an empathetic one that enables us to go through what the picture says? Maybe does a smile define us? Please do this and you will be astonished at the results you come across. Use different pictures that you find. What does bias correct tell you when you post them? And when you're told you are too straightforward, maybe what they mean is you are too passionate. Or if you're too brave, maybe it means that you are assertive and that you can move on. So please join us on the social media. We are using vocesvitales.ar. The hashtag is Jornada Anual, VTA, hashtag Género y Comunicación. So we would like to see how you do with this, and we will continue sharing this on the social media. Maria Laura and Lorraine have made a point. They discussed our biases, but as you know, biases don't come from a plant. They don't happen overnight. It's not that I come across someone and all of a sudden I develop a bias. Biases are deeply rooted in us. They come from our childhood, from our beliefs about what we were told, what was right and wrong, about things that we could do and that we could not do. What labels have been attached to us as we grew up? It's important for us to go back in our childhood and find where those gender biases come from. So we would like to invite you to listen to our next guest speaker to go back in childhood. So, and let's see what you post on the social media, but I invite you to our second talk today. We believe it is very important to have Sherry Rawlings sharing with us her thoughts about bias in childhood. She's the president of Social Impact and Philanthropy with Sesame Workshop, a not-for-profit organization doing Sesame Street. Who hasn't seen Sesame Street on TV as a child? These characters support us and teach us a lot. She leads efforts to help vulnerable children as well as specific initiatives in the US and around the world. She was appointed a global leading thinker. She's an advocate of children's needs. She normally appears on TV with Sesame Street characters, and she promotes social impact around the world. Sherry will talking with Lorena Diaz-Quijano, who's a board member of Vital Voces and of Voces Vitales Argentina and Southern Corn. Thank you. We're all ears. I'm Lorena Diaz-Quijano. Hello, I'm part of Voces Vitales Argentina. I joined Voces Vitales in 2009, and in 2010, I became a member of Voces Vitales Global, or Global Vital Voices, and I participated in a mentoring program. At that mentoring program for leading women around the world, I had the pleasure and the absolute honor of meeting Sherry. Sherry, well, I will tell you about her and all her track record, but she's a very lovely person. She's a great woman. And over the past 10 years that we've been in touch with each other, she's always been working hard for the development of women. It is a pleasure and an honor to have her here with us. I'm going to switch to English so that she can understand me, but she will be sharing this moment with us to share with us all the social impact work that she's been conducting.
I'm happy to have you here today. Sherry, she oversees all the social impact around the world of Sesame Workshop, and it just been announced that she will be the president since January. So I'm very, very happy to have her at this very important moment for her, for the organization, and of course for all of us in Voces Vitales Argentina. Welcome, Sherry.
Gracias.
Okay, and beyond that, she was the most amazing mentor I could have at Vital Voices. I've done the Fortune program in 2010, and for those of you who don't know what it means, it's a very important program to develop leadership of women around the world, and she was an amazing mentor for me and for many others during this year. So it's been already 10 years that you've been mentoring through Vital Voices, where you are also a board member, right?
Sí.
Perfect.
That's
Thank you
the
for your
extent
time.
of the Spanish that I will be using.
Okay, it's more than enough. It's more than enough. We are happy that you are here, and you can speak in English with all of us. So,
well, before we start, Lorena, I would just like to say thank you, because you are so special, and one of the best things I've ever done is being a mentor with Vital Voices. And I am so happy to see you again. I love whenever I see you. And she's had such an incredible career and success in the last 10 years since you were my mentee. And I think you owe it all to me. I do.
Of course, everything's it's about you. And then it's amazing that we also meet all around the world. Yes. Especially in those places where women and the impact of women are shown and shared, and you are always there, and it's such amazing to meet you there too.
And I will say, I'm just so proud of you. And you also are on the board of Vital Voices, which is huge. And I tease because I probably learned more from you than you ever learned from me. So I'm so excited we get to talk together today.
Yeah, it's been a great adventure, and that we share, and it's a pleasure, really. But I have something in my heart from all my childhood and all my life, which is Sesame Street. And let's talk a little bit about Sesame Street, because I know the audience will be delighted to know and how Sesame Street, that icon television show that we grew up watching, make an impact in people's life, in kids' life, and in women's life. So please tell us what is beyond what we knew from Sesame Street when we were kids, what you are doing today, what's your work today, and which is the impact and the scope of all your work.
Well, I would be delighted, and I love that you grew up on Sesame Street. That's another reason you've been so successful, I'm sure. But I do think so many people know Sesame Street, and they think of it as this iconic children's television show. And they often, to your point, don't really know the depth and breadth of our work. So it's been 50 years. Sesame Street was created 50 years ago in the US. And it was created as an experiment to see if television could be used to teach children. That was not something that was done in the day. And more importantly, could it give children who didn't have access to early learning, to quality pre-K, a chance to arrive at school ready to learn. So it was a tremendous success, as we all know. There have been over 1,000 studies on the impact of Sesame, proving that it really does help get children off to the right start, to the best start. And today, given what we're going through, given a global pandemic and the largest disruption in education in the history of the world, I think it speaks to the fact that the need for Sesame has never been greater. So we do what we started out to do. We reach children all over the world. Now it's not just television, it's television, radio, digital, mobile, WhatsApp, any way we can to provide access to quality early learning. And the other thing I will say is that you grew up watching it in Latin America. And while it was started in the US, one of my favorite stories is that within a year of launching in the US, Mexico and Brazil and Germany all reached out and wanted their own versions. And that's what started our global productions, where we create local versions of Sesame Street around the world, designed to meet the needs of children in those countries, reflecting their culture in their own language, and working with local educators to make sure that we're addressing those issues.
Yeah, it's just really amazing, fantastic how you introduce this, all the topics that kids need to know, especially those illnesses. When I was with you at your office, there was not the pandemic, there was another illness on the spot, and it was amazing how you deal with that and introduce with kids and work with them to feel better with all the situation that they could be experiencing, right? And that this conference today is about communications and how communication has a huge impact in the way we solve things and the way we see we solve problems and related to women. So for me, one of the things I wanted to share with you today and with the audience is that a lot of the amazing work around girls empowerment focuses on adolescent girls, and yet Sesame focuses on the younger children. So why is it important to reach children early? You told us something, but is there any other thing that you want to add, especially focusing on girls and young children?
Well, absolutely. There is so much great work around the world on gender equity and girls empowerment, girls' education, and it does tend to focus more on adolescence. And it's understandable. When girls reach puberty, they have so many challenges in terms of staying in school, in terms of menstruation, in terms of teenage pregnancies or early marriage. So it's great that so many people work on reaching girls in those years. But Sesame has always been focused on reaching children, as I mentioned, in those critical early years. And we have so much research today that shows that a child's brain develops the fastest in the first 5 years of life. And it's when we can have the greatest impact. So not only in terms of their learning, in terms of cognitive, the literacy and numeracy, ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, but it's when they're forming their sense of identity, forming their sense of self, seeing the world and seeing what possibilities there may be, and how they fit into that world. So it's as important that we reach them in the early years to put them on the best start. We say our mission is to grow up smarter, stronger, and kinder. And that sounds lovely, but it's true. Yeah. It's in everything we do. There's that whole child curriculum, smarter in terms of the academic basics, stronger in terms of resilience and health, and kinder in terms of empathy and understanding. And when we look at reaching young girls, we want to reach them in the early years to give them a sense of possibility, for them to imagine futures or opportunities that they may not have thought of. And it's so important to reach young boys in those years too, to form a view of the world where girls and boys are equal, and where they can both envision, really thriving and growing. So I think it's not just about inspiring girls, it's about enlightening, and it's about showing little boys it's okay for girls to go to school, and that girls and women can have different roles and responsibilities, and reaching children young in order to do that is really important.
Yes, for sure. And if you think about ourselves, I always remember the audio text that my mother gave me when I was a kid, but I can't repeat them. It's incredible. I can't repeat what I read yesterday, but I can't repeat exactly what I heard when I was a kid. Exactly. So. And so it's so clear, and I think most of the audience experience the same. So it's so key and so important. And what kind of impact have you seen in this year being the most critical, beyond the ones you mentioned that are clear? But is there any special one?
Well, listen, I mean, because we're talking in Latin America, you know, I think a great example, one of the ways we do this, as I mentioned, we create local productions and we create local Muppets that are designed to reflect children's realities and hopefully to have children identify with them. So that's why it's so important that we create really strong female role models. We have little Muppets around the world, Chomky in India and Zari in Afghanistan and Lola in Latin America. I could go on, but one example I will mention is in Mexico. You know, research showed that girls were underperforming on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And much of that comes from just social norms and expectations that girls aren't as good, that boys gravitate towards that. So we created a program called Pequeños Aventuras. Did I say that well?
Yeah,
which features Lola, a very strong female role model, and Abby, another girl Muppet. And they love science and they love math and they're problem solving and they're tackling these issues. And we do impact research always to make sure, are we having the desired outcome? And this production and the research was made possible by the IDB, by the Interdevelopmental Bank, by Dubai Cares. You know, as a nonprofit, we need the philanthropic support to do this work. But thanks to those investments, we were able to not only create this content that's been seen by over 10 million children, but also we show outcomes that change children's attitudes, that they think it's okay for girls, that they understand that science, toys around science, that curriculum around science can appeal to girls as well as boys. And what I think is also great in this research is that it even changed educators' view. In other words, educators have a certain, you know, sort of stereotype or an unconscious bias where they gravitate to boys rather than girls. So to have an impact on enlightening them and changing their attitudes around those social norms, I think is so important.
Yeah, it's for sure an amazing impact. And at the end of the day, I'm sure that you are so happy about what you are doing. So I've been seeing in everything you shared that there are some things that are key for when we have to communicate. So what would you suggest for the audience today that they have to create impactful communications for gender equality, to take care or to emphasize or to plan to do when they have to work on these topics through communication?
Well, you know, I can think of the most important thing is for us to look at issues through the lens of gender equality. And, you know, I can give you another example of a place where I think we've had tremendous impact. And I mentioned it earlier, but it's worth mentioning again. It can't just be directed at girls and women. We have to be focusing on reaching boys and men. And one of my favorite examples of a program that we've done that I think has been so powerful is in Afghanistan. And because that local production, it's called Bache Simpson, which means Sesame Garden in Dari and Pashto. And because that production is really designed to address girls' education, that was one of the key curricular goals and one of the huge needs in that country. So we did make sure that the lead Muppet was a little girl. Her name is Zari. She wears her head scarf, you know, her hijab and her school uniform proudly. She loves to go to school. She has a little brother, Zirak, who looks up to her. And as you can see, these all give us storylines to model empowering and inspiring young girls. But because this production, Zirak is also the favorite character of boys. And we do research to make sure that we're having the desired outcome, not only on educational impact, but on attitude. And our research shows that little boys who watch test 29% higher on attitudes of gender equity, saying they think it's fine for their sisters to go to school, that they think it's fine for girls to have different roles. And we also, show live action films, and we'll very deliberately show a father helping get his daughter ready for school. Also that we're not just reaching the children, but their fathers, their parents, their caregivers. And in a country like Afghanistan, where we're reaching almost 4 million children, there are only 5 million children under 5. So we have tremendous reach in radio, television, but 70% of that audience watches with a parent. So we have research saying that fathers state again and again that the reason they changed their minds about sending their daughters to school is because of watching Bache Simpson, which is huge. You know, that's about planting the seeds for long-term societal change. So I think always being mindful of reaching boys and men as well as girls and women is so important. And I think, you know, your other point is we can use the power of media. That's a non-threatening way. Those fathers are watching a children's show. I think it's why we're so effective. And I also think there have been so many examples. You look at Procter & Gamble, P&G, and they are a very valuable partner of Vital Voices. But I'm always so impressed with how they use their voice, their power in terms of being one of the largest advertisers, if not the largest in the world. Because if you've seen any of their spots, they are constantly looking at breaking down gender norms. You know, one of my favorites is a spot called Share the Load for laundry detergent. And it shows the father, you know, doing the laundry. I mean, they're both moving and sometimes humorous, you know, showing a mother who gets fed up and finally teaches her son to do the laundry because she sees the impact. And so I think the power of using popular media, children's way to enlighten, plant the seeds for those changes in attitude. And I don't believe we can succeed in girls' equity and gender equity if we don't change those cultural constructs and those overall sort of try to remove those biases and stereotypical gender norms.
Sherry, those examples have been amazing, and I'm sure that the audience will take them into account from now on, the whole life, when they have to think about doing strong communications campaigns and activities for gender equality. And I'm very glad that you could share with us this time and this moment, being now with your new position and being since January, of course, but being with all the responsibilities you have, and you travel the world. I'll meet you everywhere in the world, but always working, always smiling, and always so positive to help children, women, men, and it's amazing that you could share with us and with our audience all those examples, because I think we will never forget about them. Is there anything that you wanna share for when? Finish our meeting today.
I just want to thank you, because you made it so much fun, because I would always take time out to talk with you, and I love Vital Voices. I'm so proud to be a part, and so this has been, and I'm not traveling as much as I was. Okay, let's be honest.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I am excited because I believe we're going to be able to share one clip in closing, which just gives you a sense of the work I've tried to describe, but it will do a much better job, because you'll be able to see children around the world. You'll be able to see young girls, and you'll be able to see them engaging with these powerful Muppet role models, and some of the impact that it has on fathers and others as well. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, thank you. And I hope to meet you soon somewhere in the world. For gender equality reasons, for sure, and to hug us again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
It's an idea that's always been at the heart of Sesame Street. Give every child, everywhere, an equal chance in life.
We see our job in India as Sesame to really shift the paradigm around what we mean by high quality early childhood education in this country, because there is an imperative need, and particularly for girls.
To promote the education and empowerment of girls, we're using our TV programs, mobile content, even shortwave radio, to get to children any way we can at such a critical time.
This is the time we can make a difference. Between the ages of 3 and 7, you seem to make an imprint in their lives. And then that imprint is what they build their foundation on.
And what about you, Kamkhan? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Me? That's easy. I want to be a scientist.
Our engaging, confident characters are excellent role models, giving Sesame a unique opportunity to influence and shift attitudes.
The children, they believe that tuk-tuk is their friend, and they
aim soccer players. To change girls' prospects and open minds, we're modeling life possibilities that help young boys and men view girls as worthy, smart, and equal.
मतलब जो मैंने रेडियो पे सुनी कि आगे मत बोलिए, मेरी लड़की आगे तक पढ़े, इसलिए मत बोलिए। चमकी की बात मुझे ये बढ़िया, सबसे बढ़िया बेहतरीन ये लगी कि आगे तक मेरे बच्चे पढ़े, तो ये सबका भला होगा, तो लड़की को भला होगा।
It's one thing for them to know they can be anything, but it's another thing to give them what they need to get there.
At Sesame Street, we know early education can unlock a child's future potential, change lives, and make the world a better place.
I love you.
Gracias, Sherry. Gracias, Lorena, por tan conmovedora charla.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Lorena, for such a touching talk. I'm sure that you were touched and encouraged. It has made me think, what are the limiting messages at home in my childhood and now in adolescence? What do we say? What type of communication do we engage in? What are we exposed to? What are we not exposed to? What are the stereotypes of the communications that we choose to share with our children? Maybe you are a grandfather, a grandmother, an uncle, or an aunt. Maybe you have children around. Maybe you are a mother or a father. How many times do we put labels and words and messages that are restricting? I believe that Sherry has made an invitation for all of us to take a minute and reflect and think about those limiting messages that we are not aware of. When I was listening to her, I remember that my teenage boy told me, "I'm going to be a soccer player." And I told him, "You're too old for that." Now I remember how that message can leave an imprint in him. Not only us, but what limiting messages have we been told as kids? What impact does it have in our daily choices? What impact does it have in your career today? I grew up saying, "I'm not bright enough for math. Doesn't it happen to you? I can't do this. I don't know whether I will dare to do this." We have lots of restrictions in our histories in connection with our choices. So once again, I encourage you to be vital voices today. I want to see you. I want to read your messages on the social media, because if we share, we make things visible. And if we make things visible, we can change. What are those limiting messages that you've been told? Today, we can think about them and share them together to realize that we are not alone in this. Remember our social media, at Voces Vitales, BB at Voces Vitales AR. That's the Instagram account for chatting, at Voces Vitales AR. The hashtag for today is Jornada Anual BBA. And that's where we read all your posts and we collect all the messages that you share with us. How are we doing so far? Are you energetic enough to share a new talk? I'd like to invite someone else who comes from India, but she joins this meeting from France. This digital meeting makes that possible, to join the world. Let me introduce you to Preeti Herman. She's from India. She's joining us from France. She leads change.org. She's the global director of the foundation, and she leads a global team involving more than 100 million people in campaigns run in Asia, Europe, and Latin America. She's also a member of the Obama Foundation for global civic leadership. She's a strong spokeswoman of democracy and gender equality around the world. Her view is to catalyze a global movement that joins technology with the power of community organizations. Pretty, welcome to the 12th annual conference of Vital Voices for the Southern Cone. Welcome.
I'm assuming that's a cue for me to get started. Thank you for having me here. Good morning and good afternoon. Just going to quickly share my screen. And we are ready. Hello. I might go slightly off script because I've been so inspired by the different people who have been talking to us, especially Sesame Street. I have a friend who is the voice of Chunky in India, and I know the powerful impact they've been having. It's an honor to be speaking to all of you, and I'm going to take about 12 to 13 minutes to just tell you about a couple of stories. I try to be a storyteller, and so I'm going to tell you two stories. I want to talk to you about Valentine's Day and pink underwear. I come from India. In many Indian languages, underwear or panties are called chaddis. So I'm going to talk to you specifically about pink chaddis. So this story happens around Valentine's Day in 2009 in India. Now, he is one of the characters in the story. His name is Pramod Mutalik. He is the leader of a religious group called Shivram Sene. Now, this is a Hindu religious group. They believe they are upholders of Indian culture. They believe that a woman's place is in her home. She should actually be servicing the men in her family and not go out, not get a job, not dress inappropriately. And they feel very strongly about it. So obviously, with such strong principles, religious principles that they had, they felt that women who step out of homes, go to bars to have a drink or interact with men who are not their husbands or their fathers, just means that these are loose and forward women, which means that they actually are people who are a problem, who defile the culture of India. And so this group, a few weeks before Valentine's Day in 2009, the Shivram Sene they just barged into a bar and beat up girls who were having a drink there. There were a group of girls who had ordered meals and were having a drink. They went in there and beat these girls up as a warning, telling them, don't you dare dress in jeans or in pants or go out for a drink or talk to a man, because this is what will happen to you. That wasn't enough. They said, this is a warning to all the women in the country. We actually have another warning. Valentine's Day is a Western concept. Men and women are not allowed to talk to each other before they get married. And we've seen a lot of couples getting together, and that is against the Indian culture. So this Valentine's Day, if we see anybody, couple especially, outside, there will be action. We will forcefully take them to a temple and marry them off, because only married couples can do what couples do. This was a warning. This was big in the news. The state government and the central government, there were some responses, but nobody really knew what to do about it. I want to introduce to you the hero of our story, Nisha Susan. She was a journalist at that point. She saw this, and she, along with a few friends, realized there is a problem. This is about my space, and how dare you tell me what I can do and what I can't do in the name of culture. And so she, along with a few friends, started a Facebook group. It was called Consortium of Pub-Going, Loose and Forward Women. They started it with like a handful of women. Soon, hundreds of women joined the group. Soon, there were thousands of women joining the group. And there was a lot of anger. The women who were getting together, they wanted to do something, and they wanted to figure out what is it that we can do, because this is a threat and this is an open warning that's been given to us. This is a violent, angry warning. So this group came up with an idea called the Pink Panties campaign, or the Pink Chaddi campaign. They said, why don't we show the right-wing religious group some love? We will tell them we love them by sending them and gifting to them lots and lots of pink panties from across the country. So this was their call to action. They said, it does not matter that many of us have not thought about Valentine's Day since we were 30, if ever. This year, let us send the Ram Sene some love. Let us send them some pink chaddis. Look in your closet or buy them cheap, dirt cheap. Don't make it expensive. Make sure they are pink and send them off to the Sene. There are many meanings to this, but basically what they wanted to do was send out a message that if you are going to use violence and threats as a way of stopping us, we are going to respond to that non-violently and with love, but embarrass you like crazy. So this was a poster that went viral. Obviously, lots and lots of people started responding to their call to action. Boxes and boxes of pink underwear, expensive, cheap, clean, maybe not so clean, started landing in the Ram Sene's office. Here's an example of that. The workers didn't know what to do. They are holding up some pink panties here, wondering what to do with them. What basically had happened is that thousands, actually more than 2,000 to 3,000 underwear, pink underwear, were sent to this office, to these men who were threatening women. They started trying to retaliate. They said, oh, we will send you pink saris, or things like that. But really, they were so embarrassed that they couldn't do anything about it. 2 days before Valentine's Day, they realized they were beaten at their own game. So they called off their threat. They retracted their threat of the violence, and the leader and his supporters were then placed in preventive custody in jail by a very embarrassed state government. This is one of my most favorite campaigns. It is 11 years old. The Nisha is one of my absolute heroes. What they did was they completely embarrassed a huge, angry, and violent force. They used their same tactic. The religious group had come up with a ridiculous idea to suppress. And so in retaliation, instead of using violence, this group came up with an equally ridiculous idea based on principles of humor, non-violence, and just feminism, of equality. And they managed to win. So that's my first story. I want to now go forward 10 years. This is my second story. This is 2019. The story is happening in Tokyo, Japan. This is about the Q2 movement. I'm not sure if this became a global movement. I'm not sure how many of you know about this. Q2 piggybacks on the Me Too movement. Basically, the context is this. In Japan, and actually in many, many places in the world, including our own countries, many official workspaces require women to wear high heels, no matter what the nature of the job is. They are expected to wear high heels, even if they're going to be standing the whole day, because that's what's seen as formal dress code. Men are not expected to do that. It doesn't take into consideration that this is actually quite problematic for a lot of women. It's not a choice for a lot of women. And yet, this is seen as the idea of women having to dress up in a formal professional way. I want to introduce to you Yumi Ishikawa. She's a model, she's an actor. She is, at that point, she was a part-time worker in a funeral parlor. She went to get a job interview in a hotel, and she was told that she has to wear high heels. She was annoyed about it, And she tweeted about it, and it suddenly kind of became viral. People were responding to her campaign and telling her how, yes, this is a ridiculous idea. Why do we have it? And so she started a petition on change.org. She said, women's business shoes doesn't mean they have to be heels. This is a woman's choice. You have to give the woman the choice. She was asking the government of Japan to take cognizance of this. What really happened when she started the petition was that she saw so many people, women especially, joining her. They were sharing their own stories of discrimination and how they were forced to wear high heels. And on one side, when she faced a lot of support, on the other side, she faced a lot of harassment, especially from men and people in official places saying, this is ridiculous. You are forgetting your place in the society. You're forgetting, you're just trying to be a loose, forward woman, which is not good for our culture and country. What happened, though, is it became so big, it went beyond the Japanese boundaries. It became a larger movement. A lot of other women took inspiration from this and started challenging the high heels rule in their workspaces, be it airlines or hotels or banks, etc. It started becoming a big thing, to an extent that the ministers in the Japanese government started taking note. And at one point, the Ministry of Labor sent out a policy, a pamphlet to all offices saying, forcing women to wear contact lenses and forcing women to wear high heels could be seen as power harassment. Small win, but a big win for Ishikawa. What she actually went on to do was, she talked about the story. She released a book. She rather published a book. She actually helped launch a line of flat shoes for women. And she's become BBC's 100 most influential people in the world. They started off as a woman who was just very angry about a certain bias and discrimination that so many thousands and millions of women around the world face. What are the main themes from these stories? I can't really see you, so I don't know what you're thinking, but what would you think are the main themes of these stories? Here are some of mine. They're not exhaustive. I'm pretty sure you have yours, but I think there are 4 main themes for me. Our choices as women are challenged every single day. Every single day. These actions, be it in the society, be it your neighbor, be it your office or your partner, these actions and biases, they actually take away our dignity. When women decide to challenge it, when women decide to step up, they face a lot of harassment. And the 4th main theme is, but if we do persist in this fight, we win. And what does this mean for each one of us? And this is where I'm deviating a little bit from a very top level to changes about us. What does this mean for each one of us? You and I deal with biases and inequality every single day. Some of these things we pay attention. Some of these things happen so regularly and so often that we've stopped noticing it. We've just accepted it. We don't even see it. The other thing, though, is we're all waiting for change to happen. We love inspiration stories. We love a leader who will step up and create change. We're waiting for somebody to make things better. We're hoping that things will get better for all of us. These are things that I have learned based on my experience talking to women, regular women who stepped up to create change. In most of these cases, whatever case you take, you need to remember that whatever your experience is, you're not isolated in it. It happens not to one, but it happens to so many of us. And in all of this, it's important, the way this works, the way bias works, the way discrimination works, is by isolating you, by telling you this is about you, that you have a problem. But it's the opposite, isn't it? We as a community have a problem. This is not happening to one, it's happening to so many of us. And therefore, it's important to find our community of support. Find your community, find your sisterhood, because that's where you start. We all need help. We can't always do it alone. The other thing, the third element, is trust your instinct. When there is something, when you see something, it makes you angry. Your instinct is telling you to do something. Your instinct is saying something to you. Your heart is telling you something. Do it. Don't be afraid. Whatever it is, anything, any small action. Because I think we've been told from the time we are small, most of us, that we're women, we're small, or our places at home, we have a particular designated place, and we shouldn't step away from that place. The minute we step away from that place, we will face discrimination. We will face a reaction to it. You better be in your place. Your voice is not important. That's what we hear, right? We hear it in different ways, maybe not so directly. We've absorbed it so much, it's so much part of our subconscious. It's enough. We need to start telling ourselves and remembering that our voice is important. Our ideas are important. The community, the society, our friends, neighbors might say, this is stupid. So what? It's important for me. Do it for me, for myself. Because whatever you do, your actions can actually create change. And I want to just wrap up by saying, we are looking for inspiration stories. We're looking for leaders all around the place. But maybe we need to stop to think that instead of looking around, maybe the person we're looking for is us, is me. And so I'm going to leave all of you with a quote from somebody I really respect. He says, Barack Obama says, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.
Muchas gracias, Priti, por tu presentación.
Thank you, Priti, for your presentation and for your words that are thought-provoking. We understand that change is not in others, change is on ourselves. Change can be in the community. Our voice is important. Our ideas are important. So I hope that this has resonated with you, and we will find many messages on the social media from both men and women. They are sharing their feedback on this 12th conference. How have you been so far? Have you felt this call to action? There are many ideas that are settling in from this morning. Thank you, Priti, because you have joined us and you are in France. And this year we continue in this digital world beyond any expectations. We would like to invite you to continue sharing our day. We will have a 5-minute break, and afterwards we will have more presentations. In these 5 minutes, we will have some videos from Vital Voices representatives. Thank you very much. The differential value is that it teaches you how to be a mentor, a mentee, and when you have been with Vital Voices as a mentor for many years, you can be an ambassador. The key value of Vital Voices is that it empowers women beyond any stages, wherever they are. The differential value is that it is a network that has a common spirit of giving back through mentoring and networking. If you are a leader, then you will get support with knowledge. And if you are in a startup, then it will give you support as well. I have met leaders in the network and I felt their leadership model, they really live it. They really identify with it, and they understand what's happening to us when we want to identify our career goals. This is very important for empowering women because the network is very diverse. It includes multiple interests, and there are also multiple ages or age groups, and this is great because you can also be a mentee at my age. It is very professional and they get to know people, women, and there is follow-up and support even in their personal situations. I also love the multiplying potential of the network. It has a methodology that is inspiring. It inspires you to replicate it. I participated in the Women Leaders Vital Voices Argentina and South Cone initiative, and I was able to replicate the walk in Bolivia. We started this walk in 2018, and now we have an active network of more than 110 women in my country. So the way they develop the projects, it makes it so easy and natural. It gives you empowerment. It also enlightens you to share this. I haven't seen this anywhere else. And also the key value is generosity in sharing knowledge, understanding that the experience of one woman can be an inspiration to others, understanding that leadership has to do with generosity. We are a women's network. We want to share learning, lessons learned, and opportunities, strengthening and giving continuity to the programs of Vital Voices Argentina. What do we achieve together? We nourish each other and we inspire each other. We strengthen our leadership and professional development. We share tools and strengthen our empowerment spaces.
Bienvenidos nuevamente, ¿cómo están?
Welcome back. Hope you're doing great. We had a small break. I hope you got your next beverage for this morning. We are sharing this 12th conference for Vital Voices South Cone. All of you have joined us from many different locations throughout Latin America and the world. We have many users in Bolivia, Paraguay, Chile, Uruguay, Argentina, and other places across the US and Europe. Thank you for joining Vital Voices today. We have many vital voices on this side. We have been looking at the stories of committed women. They want to be leaders, not only in their own sectors and industries, but also for other women. They were mentors or mentee. Perhaps you are a mentor or you are a mentee. This is an experience we all share. We were talking about gender bias and communication, and this is a joint effort. Men and women need to partner in this initiative in order to stop this bias. These were some of the key takeaways of today's speakers. Biases come from our early age. Sometimes you don't recognize, you are not aware of the biases that are part of your mindset. But little by little, we start raising awareness. So please continue using the social media. We want to hear what you have to say. We are using our Instagram account. We have two hashtags, gender and communication, and the other one is the name of our annual conference. So please raise your voice and share about this session. Now, I would like to introduce someone you may know, Margaret Dawson. Perhaps you remember her. She was with us in 2019 in our conference, and we are lucky to have her today with us. She's a vice president of Red Hat, which is an organization that is committed to gender equality. And it is also a sponsor of this conference. She is VP for product marketing throughout the Red Hat portfolio. She has more than 25 years of experience. She is also a preacher for technology and a coach. She has vast experience. She is a frequent speaker. She's an author. She has been a speaker in open source events and also female leadership events. She is a source of inspiration for men and women. She was also named as a role model of the year and coach of the year for the Stevie Awards. She has had leadership roles in Fortune 500 companies, and she used her management style and skills to leverage initiatives, for instance, international e-commerce in Amazon, and also strategy in Red Hat right now. Margaret has traveled the world. She has been in Asia, Europe, North America, and she has a lot of experience working in China. Margaret, we are very pleased to have you today. I welcome you to Vital Voices Conference.
That was a lovely introduction. And thank you. It is so wonderful to be back with you this year. I wish we were there together and I could see all of your beautiful, beautiful faces. Last year at Vital Voices in Argentina, it was honestly the highlight of my entire year. And I look forward, as someone said, to when we can see each other and hug each other again, because it was lovely. And also, I look forward to coming back so I can drink more of your lovely wine. Maybe that's just me, but it was fantastic. So all of the speeches and all of the discussions so far this morning have been really a perfect foundation to what we're going to talk about now. And I really enjoyed both speakers, Sherry and Prite, were so fantastic. So what we're going to talk about is really taking what often is a negative or adversity toned view about bias, unconscious bias, and we're going to turn it on its head, as we say in America, and make it positive and make it about committing to action. And I think that the last speaker, Priti, said it so perfectly, is maybe the person we're waiting for is us. Maybe it's our own light and our own courage and our own actions that can actually make the changes. And so we're going to go through a few very specific actions that all of us can take. And sometimes it just takes one person at a time. So let's go through that. First, let's step back. When I was researching for this and looking at the theme of this year's conference, I started to think about, what does unconscious really mean? And what was interesting is there were two definitions, of course. One more of a medical condition where you're unconscious and you're not awake and hopefully someone is helping you. But the one we're talking about is different. It is a mental state. And words that came up when you look up unconscious for that definition, includes ignorant, unmindful, unintentional. And it's interesting because if you think about what we're talking about with unconscious bias, I don't know if it's always unintentional, but I think often it is ignorant or unmindful, meaning people are just not thinking about what their actions or biases are doing. And I think we've heard some great examples already today. And Sherry spoke to this a little bit, but what is this unconscious bias that we are talking about? I can tell you, for myself personally, and I think globally, there is just this impression or unconscious belief system that men are somehow smarter. They're more technical. They can handle technology and more technical things. They're more driven, ambitious. And therefore, because of that, they deserve higher titles, more money, to be leaders across any industry. What's the bias on the woman's side? That we're not as smart. We're less technical. We get overburdened by our emotions, and therefore, we can't clearly be leaders if we're too emotional. That we're not motivated by money, and that our focus is more on family than our career, as if we have to make a choice around that. I think we also need to be careful because it's so easy to believe that this is just a man thing, that men are the ones that are believing in this system or this bias against women and for men. And I loved this cartoon because it's so funny. And it's true in many ways. A lot of leaders will hire people that look and think exactly like them. And research has proven again and again that that's the opposite of what any leader should do, that we should surround ourselves with people different from us, both in mind and thought, background, and I believe gender, ethnicity, etc. But it's not just a man thing. I looked at several different pieces of research, and the data was consistent that somewhere around 10 times men and women are 10 times more likely to select a male candidate that is in a job, recruitment situation over a woman, right? If they believe the resume is from a man. So they did a ton of blind studies. And again, I didn't put a source because it was about 15 different studies that I looked at. And these were global. These were all over the world. And again, if people were given a resume or a candidate and they didn't know if it was a man or woman, so the gender was removed, then the results were almost equal for men and women. But if they put names that were clearly male or female, then both men and women were 10 times more likely to choose the male candidate, even if the qualifications or the background or the experience looked almost identical. So we need to look inside ourselves and make sure that we are not holding an unconscious bias against women also. And I think all of us have experienced this. So what I would like to propose is that we really focus on being conscious. And really, this is about intention and awareness. So stepping back and making sure everything that we're doing is with absolute intent. And we have to be vigilant. I love this word that came up when I looked up conscious. Vigilant means you are on alert, that you are waiting and looking and ready to be conscious, to be aware, to take action, to make sure that you are not allowing your brain to become unconscious or unmindful, that we're always thinking about this, not just against women, against anyone, that we are constantly aware of what we are thinking and how we are being champions of all people. So those of you that listened to me last year know I love actions. And I love lists. So I really thought about this and thought, what could each of us do? So as I'm going through these, think to yourself, what is one of these you could start doing tomorrow? And I will tell you, I was so incredibly thrilled and honored that, in talking to many women who I met last year, they each said that they took things from our discussion last year and implemented them. And it just has to be one. So let's go through them. So this is for everyone. Intentionally change your input to your daughters. I believe that Sherry spoke to this very well around the Sesame Street perspective and the messages that they are so intentional about. Because the things we start saying to our daughters and sons from a very, very young age do become imprinted. And many of us have experienced that daughters will receive feedback or input that is focused on their looks. You're so cute, you're so pretty, you're so special, you're such a sweet dancer, whatever it is. And I'm not saying don't say those things, but I'm saying add to those input that don't focus on a girl's looks or beauty. You're so smart, you're so clever, you're so talented, you're so curious, you're so interesting. Let's think about words and input that keep that girl's mind open to those endless possibilities. Our words are so important. I will also tell you that the times I have seen young girls and even women who have that feeling that they can do anything, especially women in non-traditional careers, be it aerospace or technology or even medicine, it's because their fathers believed they could do anything. So fathers that are in our audience, your input to your daughters is so, so powerful. And I'm not saying the mother's input isn't. I think mothers play a very, very important role, but there's something special about that father-daughter relationship. I see it with my own husband and our daughter, who I am proud to say just finished medical school. So obviously something is there. And I will tell you that I have never thought, and I don't think her father did either, that she was ever different than our 4 boys. But it takes intention. You have to be thinking about that input every single day. So intentionally change or continue if you're already doing it, or just stop before you give input that is only related to a little girl's looks. What if we all intentionally assumed that women and girls fundamentally are as smart as boys and men? Just everybody is smart. No matter what color their skin, no matter what gender they are, no matter where they are in their journey. What if we started every interaction with an assumption that everyone was smart, that everyone had the ability to be brilliant? And yes, I know there is difference in IQs, but everyone has a way that their intelligence can shine. So here's a very specific action. And I know this is controversial, and some people don't like to talk about intentionally hiring any one group of people. But what if we intentionally recruited women candidates? I will tell you that on the last few teams that I have led, we have committed to filling our pipeline, as we call it, the group of candidates that we recruit for any position. It has to be 50% diverse, meaning that it could be people of color. It should absolutely be women. It should be people that are maybe non-traditional hires. And what I will tell you is, if you are intentional about finding and bringing in people that don't look like everyone else, or that are of a group that you don't have enough representation, which often is women, right? We know that women represent 25% at most in many non-traditional careers. You will start to see a change just by changing how you recruit, because more and more of those people that you are recruiting intentionally will get the job. And everyone knows, like that cartoon said, right? We network with people often that are like us. So if you have more women and more diverse people in your organization, they will bring in more women and more diverse people into your organization, and your success will be so much greater. And you will get fought for this. People will say, that's ridiculous. We can't put a number on it. And what I'd say to you is you can, and we should, and we don't have to apologize. And as you're recruiting women, be very intentional that the salary that you are paying is exactly the same as what you would pay a man. And I have heard this story so many times, honestly, it's becoming almost exhausting, that because a woman doesn't ask for the same salary, we don't give her the same salary. So what I would say is, as you recruit more diverse populations, decide what that job is worth before you even start recruiting, and pay what that job is worth regardless who gets that job. And if that's a big increase in salary for the person that got it, well, congratulations to all of you. You are now paying that person what the market says their job is worth. And that's what we all should be doing. There is a value on the job. It shouldn't matter what gender or color that person is that gets that job. Here's another one we can all do, and hopefully you're all already doing this. And if you're not, just start with one person. Intentionally mentor one woman. And again, this is for men and women. Some of my best mentors have been men, and some of my best mentors have been younger than me. So just start with one. And if you already have one, add one more. And find someone, or just ask a group of people that if they need a mentor, that you're there. And I guarantee you someone will raise their hand. In some research I read recently, there was some incredibly high number, like 80% of women in the workforce still do not have a mentor. And we need to change that, because that is going to help that woman have a safe place to learn, to grow, and to push herself to be even more. At the same time, something you can do for yourself is intentionally apply for a more senior role. And it's funny because I was thinking of this action as I was putting this presentation together, and I had the joy of talking to someone in the Vital Voices organization that told me this story recently, that this was the one thing she took away from our talk last year, that there was a job that maybe she had 50 or 60% of the qualifications, and she applied for it and she got it. And it was a more senior role. It was a more global role. It was a higher scope, but she was absolutely capable of that job. And so are you. So think about how to build on your foundation. And if it is important to you to continue to grow your career and to move up the ladder, so to speak, then go for it. The only thing stopping you is you. And what's the worst that can happen? Maybe you don't get it the first time, but that doesn't mean you can't get it the next time. So take that chance, take that risk, and apply for a different job. Something women tell me all the time or ask me is, how can they have their voice be heard in a meeting? And this is a hard one because part of it is on you. You have to let your voice be heard intentionally. And I don't mean be the loudest voice in the room, and I don't mean say something when you don't have anything to say. But when you do have a thought, or you do have input that you know you want to say, then say it. And it's become even harder to do this virtually. And I put this image very intentionally because we are all in this Zoom virtual world with everything we do. So how do you let your voice be heard in this world? And one way you might start is helping someone else's voice be heard. If you see another woman or man, someone who maybe isn't participating or doesn't know how to break through, especially right now when everything is virtual, maybe that's your voice and you say, I think Maria has something to say. Can we listen to her? Or, I see that Ellen has her hand up. Maybe we can hear what she has to say. So maybe the voice that you use is to help someone else's voice be heard if you're not ready. But this is a wonderful way women can support each other and men can support women, is to notice when someone isn't being heard or notice when someone hasn't said anything and ask them a question. What do you think? Did you have any insights from what we just talked about? And I guarantee you, every time I have done that, the person has had something to say. So if you are a leader and you're in a situation like we are so often where maybe you're in a meeting with 5 or 10 or 20 people, pay attention to the voices that aren't being heard or people that aren't saying something and ask them, because we need their input. We need to hear their voices. Intentionally put women on your stage. So obviously Vital Voices is wonderful at this. We have many women on our virtual stage today, and we did last year, and every time this event takes place anywhere in the world. But if we look across industry events overall, and there was an event company out of the UK that did some research around this, and they looked at 60,000 events. And consistently, anywhere in the world, women comprised under 30% of the speakers and men comprised 70% or more of the speakers. So we still have a long way to go to even get to parity, to 50-50. And again, people say, well, we can't intentionally ask for women on the stage. And I would say, yes, you can. There was a wonderful event in Canada. It's called Forward 50. And last year, for this event, it's an annual event, they told all of their sponsors that if they brought a speaker to the keynote stage as part of their sponsorship, it had to be a woman. And the percentage of women speakers at the event last year, I think, was something like 90%. But the point of them doing that was very clear, because what I hear from event managers is, well, if someone's sponsoring, they're giving us money so we can run this event, and they should be able to put on the stage whoever they want. And this organization said, no, we should still get input on that. And the incredible thing was that, one, nobody really noticed. We didn't have to say anything. But two, the speakers were amazing. And there were many speakers that maybe didn't get those opportunities, but did because of this mandate, so to speak, that came with the sponsorship. This took immense courage, I think, on the organizer's part, but it worked. And I will tell you, as a woman who spoke at that event, not part of a sponsorship, but just in general, it was incredible to watch all these amazing women get on the main stage. We also need to hold our leaders accountable. And this is something that is challenging. No matter where we are in the organization or what level we are, we need to ask for our leaders to change, to make a change in the numbers, in the way we're hiring, in the way our leadership looks. How many times have you gone to an event or a company event and the leadership team is on stage and it's all men? Or in America, it's often all white men. That does not represent the employees. It doesn't represent the communities in which we work and live. It doesn't represent our customers. And we need to hold our leadership accountable for change. I will tell you, a team that I had the honor of taking responsibility for recently has pushed me to be accountable to increase the number of African Americans that we have on our team. We currently have 4%, and they are asking that we put a target of 15% for next year. Now, many people would be uncomfortable with that. And I asked them, I said, are you all telling me that we want a specific number? And they said yes. So we can hold our leaders accountable for what we think is right. And finally, I think we should all intentionally try to become what is called a double bottom line organization. And this is a wonderful book, and I don't know if this has been translated into Spanish, so we'll have to do some research around this. But a double bottom line company or organization is one that is committed to both positive financial returns. So, we need to make money. We need to have a nice spreadsheet and P&L, and maybe we're a public company and we owe that to our shareholders. But the important thing is that second bottom line is we are also committed to making meaningful, positive social impact, so that capitalism and social good do not have to be mutually exclusive. They absolutely go together. And if you think about some of the most incredibly successful people, you could look at Bill Gates, you could look at many others. The ones that really drove amazing success in their companies are the ones that never forgot philanthropy and the fact that we are so fortunate to have jobs and have these opportunities, that it is our commitment and it is our responsibility to give back. But all of this takes intention. It takes consciousness. It takes awareness. And I would say it also takes courageous leadership. And we heard courage implied over and over again so far today. So my ask is that you commit to courage and you commit to one intention among this list. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all again, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Muchas gracias, Margaret. Ha sido más que inspirador escucharte.
Thank you, Margaret. It's been very inspiring listening to you, and you have made another call to action. Rather than stressing on the negative aspect of things, you have given us 10 tips for all of us to look at our jobs, to analyze our teams, how we do searches for new people, where do we place the emphasis and the accountability of diversity on our teams. So I believe that you have encouraged us to think once again on the motto, looking into the future with greater equality. Thank you very much, Margaret, for having been part once again of our conference. And let's move on. We will listen to another voice. Let me remind you that you are vital voices this morning, always. So today we want you to be here with us. We are reading your posts on the social media at vocesvitales.ar. That's our Instagram account. Also hashtag comunicación y género and Jornada Anual BBA. So please share with us what has been resonating in connection with the different women and men that we are listening today. Let's move on. Let's continue sharing this conference. And now we're going to welcome Chandra Jisi, who's the founder and president of INMAT Foundation, promoting gender equality. She's the executive producer of several documentaries, including the Emmy Award nominee, Sexy Baby, and the favorite of the festival, Red Roll, and she produced Frame by Frame, a documentary that has won many awards. She's a member of the Vital Voices Global Partnership Board. She's also part of the advisory committee of Leadership Unite, and she's an active member of TED, and she also has a scholarship program. She's member of a fund that invests in new companies founded by women. Welcome to Vital Voices. We are all ears.
Estoy aprendiendo español, pero soy principiante, so I will be giving this talk in English. So I'm here to talk about storytelling, and then I'm here to issue a challenge. Stories are how we learn to make sense of the world. One of the first things we learn to ask for when we're little, after we have enough food, after we have shelter, we ask, tell me a story. And that doesn't change just because we grow up. We learn from stories. Think about all of the ideas you have about love, about fear, about success, and where they came from. How many of those came from stories? Is there a favorite place you've always dreamed of visiting because you read about it, or you heard about it, or you saw it in a story? Is there a completely irrational fear you have of sharks in swimming pools because you saw a movie at a slumber party when you were little? Is there a favorite food? What are your ideas of love? We learn all these things from stories. And I've been lucky enough to be an executive producer for documentaries and be able to support stories that I want to hear told, questions I have, ways to understand the world. And I got into it accidentally, but since I've gotten into it through a Kickstarter, I have seen firsthand the impact storytelling can have. With one of my early ones, Hot Girls Wanted, which is about the rise of the amateur porn industry, we were able to reach an unbelievable number of people on Netflix, people who we never would have reached in traditional ways, where not only were we doing impact campaigns, where we were having screening on Capitol Hill and working to change legislation, we were also, the directors would receive messages on social media from girls saying, hey, I turn 18 next month, and I was thinking about answering one of those ads for models, actresses wanted, and now I don't think I will. I actually got a direct message from a guy friend of mine who said, thanks a lot, now I'm gonna have to change my viewing habits. And I said, good. We've seen the same thing with Roll Red Roll, a documentary focused on a sexual assault in Steubenville, Ohio, where we've been able to reach out to high school students, to sports teams, to tons of people that we never would have reached in traditional methods. And because it's a story, it's a really easy way to start the conversation. We can ask questions, we can talk with people and say, hey, what would you do if you saw this? How would you handle this situation? It's a wonderful way to normalize discussions that could be hard to get into, because the best storytelling is actually story showing. I can define rape culture and people can nod their head and understand. But when they watch a story like Roll Red Roll, they say, oh, I get it now. And it makes sense on a whole other level. Now, this is all really hard to prove. We can all see cultural shifts. You look at, in the United States, for example, is it an accident that you had Morgan Freeman play the President of the United States in Deep Impact in 1998? And then you had another Black man play the President of the United States, President Palmer, on the TV series 24 in 2001. And then you have Obama elected in 2009. Accidental? Maybe. You have great cultural shifts looking in the United States in the way gay marriage was viewed, where for generations you had a majority of people in the US feeling strongly marriages between a man and a woman. And then in a very rapid time, we see a shift to marriage being love is love, and gay marriage being legalized. And at the same time, you had TV shows where you had characters who were gay and lesbian, Will and Grace, Ellen, transitioning into characters in Glee. So there were shows that were just about the character being gay or lesbian. And then there were shows where, yeah, there are gay lesbian characters. And now, if you watch pretty much any young adult teen show, if you watch stories like La Casa de las Flores, you have in Las Casa de las Flores pretty much everywhere on the spectrum of LGBTQIA normalized and represented, and that matters. thinking in Latin America countries have had an incredible amount of female leadership. And you think historically, no matter how you feel about Evita Peron, she was a very visible female leader. So we have a lot of data about you can't be what you can't see. And if you see it, not only does it normalize it in the culture, but it creates the change. You look at things like street food, Latin America, or the film Roma and Yalitza Aparicio, and the normalization, the representation of indigenous women in culture that weren't seen before. And yes, there are problems. There is the Eurocentric ideal of beauty, where when women like Yalitza Aparicio are first seen, there are problems with skin being highlighted, lightened, photoshopping. And that happens the same in the United States, where you've had actresses like Kerry Washington speaking out against it. But representation matters. And a book, for example, Woven in Moonlight, the author was born in Boca Raton, but her parents are immigrants from Bolivia. And she used Bolivian history, Bolivian culture to weave a fantasy world in this fantasy novel. And in the acknowledgments at the end, she says, to the TV show Jane the Virgin, I saw myself in every episode and every time Jane Villanueva sat down to write. Thank you for existing. Representation matters. And now, when the creators of Jane the Virgin made the show, did they know that they would be inspiring a girl who would go on to grow up and write what Time magazine called one of the 100 best fantasy novels of all time? It doesn't matter if they knew it or not, because that's what they did. And we're starting to see more and more creators looking at this, looking at their responsibility. For example, Rita Moreno, an actor who has won pretty much every single acting award out there, talks about how growing up and when she first started, she was only offered stereotypical Latina roles. And after she won an Academy Award for playing Anita in West Side Story in 1961, she thought that would change. It didn't. But what did change was she now felt empowered enough to turn down those stereotypical roles. Now, she said she didn't make another movie for 7 years. Not that many people have that kind of courage, but we're seeing it more and more. And we're seeing these films and TV shows that create massive culture change and change the story. So, for example, Black Panther, Crazy Rich Asians. Crazy Rich Asians changed the story in Hollywood, which was, you can't make a movie with only Asians because only Asians will go see it. Crazy Rich Asians completely disproved that. Now, did it make it easier for Always Be My Maybe, another film with an all Asian cast, to be made a year later? Hopefully it did. And the thing that I would like you to take away is that, first of all, we are all creators. We have this idea of, oh, well, the content's created and I'm just consuming it, so I don't really do anything. I don't have a responsibility. That's not true. Yes, the content is created, and you as well. We create content every day. If you have Instagram, if you like something, if you tweet about it, if you post about it, that creates content. And so when you're looking at these massive shifts and these massive cultural phenomenon, yes, the people that created Black Panther, I cannot imagine what an undertaking that was. And I am so grateful that it was created. They created a movie. We created a movement. everyone who talked about it, who tweeted about it, who memed about it, who went and saw it again and again, that created the cultural change. So when we watch something, we give it validity, we give it power, we give it a voice. Our attention creates change. You know, back in the day, there was relatively little content. If you wanted to watch a show, maybe there was a movie coming out. There were only a couple of TV stations, so you didn't really have a choice. And in that case, yes, most signed off probably by a white man who had very similar experiences to the other white men in the room who were signing off on content. And that was your choice. Now, if you are privileged enough to be able to see this, most likely you have access to more content streaming right now than people all throughout history had up to this point. And so this old model of the people who created this content, who signed off, who greenlit, that's kind of flipped, because storytelling is a business. And so when we watch for something, we are voting every moment with where we put our attention. And we are saying, yes, I want more of that. So if I'm home and I'm watching a movie and Chris Hemsworth takes off his shirt and I click rewind, Netflix just saw me do that. They just watched me do that. And maybe I'm okay with just having voted for a world of more shirtless Chris Hemsworth. Or maybe I think like, oh, that's objectification. And yeah, that's a bit problematic and oops. But my intention doesn't matter. What happens is that I cast that vote. And likewise, if I'm home and I just want to watch something crappy and I watch a show, really terrible reality TV show that stereotypes women so that they only care about money and makeup and men, I'm voting for more of that in the world. And the people monitoring me don't know that, oh, but I was watching it ironically, or I'm just watching it with a friend because we make fun of it and laugh about it, or it's just a talk with my coworkers. No, what matters is that I cast that vote. I said, yes, I want more of this in the world. And it's kind of creepy to think how closely we're being watched. There are a lot more films and things out right now about the data mining. All we need to know is that it exists. And it's very careful. It's very close. For example, Netflix sent out a famous tweet in 2017 on a movie that they had made called A Christmas Prince. Terrible movie, fantastic drinking game. And the tweet was, to the 53 people who've watched A Christmas Prince every day for the past 18 days, who hurt you? So they know, and it's not just Netflix. Anything we watch, anything we listen, we're being monitored. Spotify did a famous series of billboards a few years ago where they called out some of their listeners' habits, such as, dear person who played sorry 42 times on Valentine's Day, what did you do? Or dear person in the theater district who listened to the Hamilton soundtrack 5,376 times this year, can you get us tickets? This is how detailed the information they have. So when we watch something, when we rewatch something, when we stop watching something, that gets registered and that is used to create more content. So we are really visualizing and creating the world that we want to see. And it's not just creating our world when we take things in. We're also creating ourselves. About 15 years ago, there was a documentary called Super Size Me, where a man ate only McDonald's for 30 days in a row and monitored his changes. And in that case, the changes were pretty easy. They were measurable. He could go to doctors. He could see, how does my blood pressure change? How does my body fat change? And it was horrifying. And we're doing the same things to ourselves, not making judgments of good or bad. But when we put things into ourselves, that changes who we are. Right now, science isn't able to fully measure this, but I guarantee if I or you go home and watch a really bad reality show or House of Cards or a narco novella for 30 days in a row, at the end of that 30 days, we would be a different person than if we watched 30 days of Las Casas de Flores or Parks and Recreation or Schitt's Creek or Never Have I Ever. And if I'm binge watching a show, I am spending more time with those characters than I am with my best friends. And who do I want to be spending that much time with? Ask yourselves the next time you watch something, how do I feel after watching this? And the answer is different for everyone. How do I want to feel? What do I want to think? It's not about good or bad. And it's not about, oh, I only want to watch things that make me happy. I mean, maybe I do want to watch Greatest Showman, which literally audiences were recorded spontaneous standing ovations after watching the movie, because I don't just feel happy, I feel giddy with joy and empowered. But that doesn't mean that that's the only thing I'm looking for. Maybe what I want to watch is something completely different. But what I don't want to do is not think about it. So if I watch a show and every time after I watch the show, I'm anxious and I'm stressed and I'm depressed about the world and I'm suspicious and overwhelmed and I feel nauseous, maybe I don't want to watch that show. But that doesn't mean that I'm not watching reality. It doesn't mean that I don't watch things like When They See Us, fantastic series by Ava DuVernay that cannot be called happy. If you watch it, I wouldn't say you walk away happy. However, maybe it's absolutely gut-wrenching to watch, but maybe you walk away feeling determined, feeling inspired to make change, feeling awe for the courage of the people involved. Or maybe you read a book like The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Heaton, which I strongly recommend, because while it is absolutely heartbreaking, it is also one of the most inspiring things I've ever read. I literally cried and I literally laughed out loud. It is about the power of storytelling and the power of imagination. And I feel an incredible amount of gratitude for Ray for sharing his story. It's hard to think about a story about a man who spent almost 30 years on death row for a crime he didn't commit as funny. He makes parts of it funny, and he makes it so uplifting that by the end, you will be grateful that you read this book. So we don't just create the world around us, we create ourselves. And we have the power to guide what's being created, and we have the power to shape the world we live in. And now, if I have a friend who's watching something that I don't watch, this is not a eat your vegetables teaching moment. If she says, oh, did you see this? Maybe I don't say, oh no, I would never watch that because it's really negative and what it puts into the world is not what I want to see. I just don't put my attention on it. I say, no, I didn't see that, but oh my gosh, I watched Street Food Latin America last night, and you have to watch the episode just to see the tortilla at Las Chicas de la Tres. Amazing. And that's where I want to focus. So I'm super grateful for all the people out there making the amazing content. But now it's up to us to choose that content. And we have more power than we think we do. So use your power, use your voice to create the world you want to live in and create the self you want to be. At Vital Voices, we talk about using your power to empower. So the question I have and the challenge I have for you is the next time you take something in, think about, is this something that I want to vote for? Is this what the world I want to see? Is this who I want to create? Thank you. And thank you very much for giving your voice and your power behind Vital Voices right now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chandra. It's really, really a pleasure hearing from you. I have to say that I already taste that tortilla in Argentina, and like it's wonderful. You should come here to taste it as well.
I will. When I'm talking about places that I want to visit based on stories I've heard, that is one of them.
You have to come. We would like to make the audience present here because, Vital Voices are there in that part of the screen and here, and they have some questions for you. I want to share with you some questions from the audience. One of them is, how can we identify and difference the influence for change between manipulation in content? A difficult one.
It is a difficult one. I think it's more because it is so difficult to try to figure out now that we see so much that is manipulated. I think it's what it does to you. So when I'm watching something, it's back to the question of how do I feel and what do I want to put out? Is this something that is going to put out kindness? Or is this something that is going to increase fear in the world, is going to... Almost everything I see or read inspires me. I have so many heroes from... And I will post a list from Anthony Ray Heanton for The Sun Does Shine to Ava DuVernay to incredible actresses and actors out there. Everyone in Black Panther, everyone involved with Crazy Rich Asians, people who break ground inspire me, who tell stories that I haven't seen before, who have that courage to be the first and to say, yes, I want to be heard.
Thank you, Chandra, for being here and for showing us the power of storytelling in our lives. It's really a pleasure for you to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Muy bien, continuamos esta jornada. ¿Cuánto para pensar, no? La influencia.
Okay, we continue with our conference, with our program. There's a lot of thought-provoking ideas. How do we share content we choose? How do we share with our children, with our friends? What are our choices? Chandra has left us with lots of room for thought. And now let's turn to the last panel this morning. Remember that your voices can be heard as well. If you have questions, you can send them to us, and you can also ask any of the members of the panel that we will have shortly. Remember, we talked about our power as change makers. We have many ideas, many takeaways from the previous sessions, and now we will get more ideas. So please take note, because I'm sure there will be valuable insights. We will have Ana Maria Urrutia. She is a member of the board of Vital Voices, and she will interview 3 key reference about the commitment of organizations and colleagues in this area. They will give us information about how they recruit and how they work in their teams. Let me introduce them. Veronica Varacas is the coordinator of the Win-Win program of UN Women in Argentina. She is a consultant with more than 15 years of experience in institutional development, strengthening of public policy making, management of diversity programs. She's a specialist in gender and human rights. She's an advisor to international organizations and networks that advocate for the rights of Latin Americans and Caribbeans in multi-country projects. She has supported enablement programs in South Cone, Andean, and Central America regions. We will also have Francisco Tobias, who is the CFO of City Latin America, including City Banamex Mexico. He has been in this position since 2016, and he is responsible for the financial strategy for 22 countries in Latin America and Mexico. He is co-director of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee of Latin America at City, and he is also part of the steering committee and an active participant in city recruitment and mentoring programs. We will also have another panelist, Ludovico Marking, who is from Argentina and an HR leader for multinationals in different countries. He has worked for different industries, including construction, forestry, chemical, and car manufacturing. He is currently the HR director for Renault, Argentina and Chile. He has a strong leadership in talent development and recruitment. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send them to us. Ana Maria, you will be the moderator or facilitator of this panel. Thank you, Martina. Thank you, Francisco, Veronica, and Ludovico for joining us in our annual conference. We would like to talk about your own experience in your industries and organizations. Francisco, could you share with us your views and the views of your organization? How do you approach gender bias with colleagues? How do you approach this at the financial services industry level? Thank you, Ana Maria, and thank you, all of you. Can you hear me? Yes. I am honored to be here. I am very proud to be part of City and the initiatives that we have in this respect. In general, we are focused on diversity. It has been scientifically demonstrated that diverse teams work much better than non-diverse teams. Now, in team building and in my own development, I have realized the incredible advantage of having a diverse team. My direct reports are a team of 13 people. We have half and half, men and women. We have different nationalities, and their backgrounds are also very diverse. And I believe that is very important as well. And this allows us to have rich discussions and decision-making and an excellent environment at the workplace. So for City, there are three main initiatives. One, this might be quite unique. In the first place, we have diversity objectives. We have very clear goals as regards the percentage of men and women in the company. And each leader has a goal because we believe that by setting goals, we can change things. Without goals, we are not as proactive. So we all have goals to achieve more diversity. And basically, another thing we do is monitor pay equity, which is quite basic. This means a man and a woman in a level playing field should be making the same amount of money. They should have the same salary. So we analyze this. If we find any differences, we correct it, and we publish this data. The third thing we do lots of things. I don't remember the third initiative, but so we have setting goals, measuring, and also bringing down the barriers to diversity. In The financial area of Latin America, approximately 1,000 people at Citi, at the senior positions, women tend to have children when they reach those positions. So the diversity index starts to drop. There are fewer women after pregnancies. So we started deliberately having short-term assignments. This is when one person is on maternity leave, we bring another person with who has a lower role, and we give them a stretch assignment. That is an opportunity to be an interim replacement for this person who is on maternity leave. So we give them the opportunity to learn. And the person that has left on maternity leave is not stressed about coming back to the workplace. It releases them from the very high stress levels in women after their maternity leaves. When they feel that there are very important issues that they have to face and they have to take their maternity leaves. So having a safe replacement and giving an opportunity to someone else who would not have that chance otherwise is extremely helpful. We have more than 20 of those programs running right now, and we are telling people to help, raise their hands and ask for it, trying to ease the burden and trying to take down the barriers and doing measurement. Those are our key pillars. Thank you very much. Ludovico. Or Veronica, let's ask Veronica first. How does Win-Win support these initiatives, these challenges of gender bias? Thank you, Ana Maria, for the invitation. Thank you, Francisco and Ludovico, for joining this panel. The Win-Win program is an initiative from UN Women, the International Labour Organization, and the European Union as the co-organizers of the program. The program promotes or advocates for empowerment of women in Latin America and the Caribbean, and we work with the private sector based on the 7 principles of women empowerment in promoting gender equality in companies. Both Citi and Renault are companies that are part of the network, and they have been working very hard in these areas. We have 166 companies that have signed the agreements, and we reach 144,000 women employed by those companies. So the impact of the initiatives in the private sector is enormous. Those women have families. There is a supply chain that is considered as well. So suppliers are also benefit from these measures. So it has a multiplying effect. As part of this program, we support companies providing technical advice and expertise in terms of gender issues in the private sector to implement the principles, to prepare a self-assessment, to see how companies are doing in terms of gender equality, and based on the gaps that are identified, we prepare an action plan. Today, since the inception of the program, 58 programs have already designed their action plans, and they are implementing a series of measures, including the elimination of bias. The program also supports entrepreneurial women and business owners. Women who are business owners usually face more barriers than men that have a startup. We have a program that started in Argentina in 2019. It has worked very well, and it was expanded to the region. 1,000 business women have been trained as part of this program. There are 6 countries, Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, Chile, and Jamaica. And the training covers gender issues, finance, education, procurement with a gender perspective, exports, and other topics. We also have the Argentina Awards. There were 31 finalists, including Renault. And in early December, the awards will be delivered. And we will also award the 2020 prize. We had some delays because we were hoping to have a face-to-face award-giving ceremony, but it will not be possible. And finally, it is important to get civil society involved, the private sector and the public sector as well. So we support the Argentine state through the Department of Women, Gender and Diversity in the development of studies of sector gaps. We also support the Igualar program. We also have an online directory of women organizations, cooperatives that work as part of the popular economy so as to bridge the gap in the value chains. That is to say, to build a bridge with women who are entrepreneurs, women who are in marginalized sectors and organizations. In the times of pandemic, we understand we cannot emerge from the crisis if there is no gender equity. Finally, we also support the provinces because it is important to have a federal approach with our actions. And we create discussion tables. Public and private stakeholders take part in these discussions. We provide the technical advice, and we also give communication support. We have the women department of the different provinces that take part. Also, the associations of women, business women, the different chambers take part in these initiatives in order to make visible the situation of women entrepreneurs and to create public policies that will break the barriers. Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. I would now give the floor to Ludovico. When I think about the car manufacturing industry,
Bueno, muchas
I
gracias, Ana
believe that there
María,
is
muchas
a
gracias,
gender
Francisco y Verónica,
bias challenge
por
here.
compartir este
Thank
panel.
you
Sí, digamos, siempre reflexionando,
to
digamos,
my
si hay
fellow
alguna industria que
panelists.
tiene
If there is
sesgo de
an
género, es la industria
industry that
automotriz, ¿no? Es
has
una
a
industria
gender bias,
considerada para
that
machos, así
industry
que, digamos,
is
tenemos de alguna manera
the car manufacturing
alguna
industry, which
autoridad
has
para
traditionally been
discutir sobre el
considered
tema.
an industry for macho
Yendo un
men.
poco a los
So
indicadores, nosotros
yes,
de hecho
we
tenemos
do have room for
un tablero de
improvement. We have
indicadores
some indicators. We have a
de
scorecard
diversity y
for
trabajamos
diversity,
con algunos de los indicadores que ya
and we
comentó
work
Francisco
with
que
some of
trabaja en el
the
City
key
y que tienen que ver
indicators that Francisco mentioned for
con
city.
lo que es diversidad en
It
cuanto a
has to do
proporciones de
with
mujeres dentro de
diversity
la
in terms
población
of the
total, pero
proportion of
también
women
mujeres dentro de la
as part
proporción
of the total
dentro de
population
de
of
la
colleagues, but
población de
also
mando, o sea,
as part of the
gerencial de la
leadership
compañía y hasta en el board
positions, the
ejecutivo. Esos son
management
indicadores.
positions, and
También
also the
trabajamos con
executive positions.
indicadores que miden,
Those are
que
our
miden
indicators.
el
We
pay
also
gap.
work with
También es algo
metrics
que
that have to
comentó
do with the
Francisco
pay
que hace
gap,
en el City.
as Francisco mentioned.
Pero
That's
bueno,
also a
los
city
indicadores
initiative.
en sí, la verdad que,
The
digamos, no
indicators
consideramos los indicadores como
by
el
themselves
interés en sí, sino la manera en la cual
are
nosotros
not
tenemos un
the
diagnóstico acerca de
end
cómo estamos
or the goal
posicionados
by
en
themselves.
términos de diversidad.
The
Diversidad
metrics
no solamente
show
desde el
our
punto de vista de
positioning
diversidad
in
de
terms
género,
of
también
diversity.
trabajamos con otros
Diversity has to
indicadores
do not
de
only with
diversidad
gender, but also
asociadas a otras,
with other
minorities, por así decirlo.
minorities, so to speak.
Específicamente, también nosotros lo que tenemos es, lo que hemos
Specifically,
hecho y ya hace unos cuantos años que estamos poniendo acento sobre eso, es en generar
we
prácticas
have been emphasizing for the past
de
years
gestión de personas
different
que
people
contemplen la
management
diversidad de género.
practices that include
Un poco
gender
cuando
diversity.
conversamos con María Arismendi
When
acerca de
we
el contenido de lo que
discussed with
íbamos a
Maria
discutir,
Arismendi the
digamos, lo que yo
content
le
of
manifesté fue que
our
nosotros
discussion
normalmente
today,
actuamos sobre
what I
los
said was
síntomas
we
de las cosas en las
normally
cuales
act
vemos que
upon
tenemos
the
oportunidad de
symptoms
mejora. Pero la
where we
verdad
see
que
room
el
for
fondo es
improvement,
algo de lo
but
cual
in fact,
es algo de lo cual se
we need to get
trabaja,
to the
pero tiene un
bottom
resultado que uno
of the
puede ver
matter.
mucho más en largo plazo.
We work on
Entonces, bueno,
that,
para pensar
but
y
it is a
dividir
long-term
entre estos dos
effort.
aspectos, qué hacemos
So
para el corto y
we
qué
need
hacemos para
to
el largo, diría,
address
para
the
el corto,
short-term and the long-term
tenemos políticas
issues.
implementadas que tienen
For the
que ver
short term, we have certain policies
incrementar
in
los
place that
tiempos
have
de
to
licencia
do
por
with
maternidad, dar más
increasing the
flexibilidad.
maternity
Antes
leave
de esta
duration
virtualidad
to
teníamos home
provide
office
more
específico
flexibility. Before
para
this
madres.
virtual
Hemos
environment,
implementado
we
algo que, digamos, que
had
también tiene que
home
ver con
office for
diversidad y
mothers
es darle,
already. So
incrementar
we
la
are
licencia
increasing
por
our
nacimiento,
focus
pero
on
para hombres, o sea, licencia por
parental
paternidad la hemos
leaves,
aumentado.
both maternity
De
and
manera tal
paternity
que
leaves. We have increased the maternity leave duration as well.
el hecho de ser padre no termine siendo una
fact
limitante o algo de lo que todos terminan protegiéndose o
Becoming
espantándose.
a father
Esto,
should
como
not
decía,
be
en
a
el corto plazo. En
limiting
el largo
factor
plazo,
at the workplace. So this is for the
trabajamos con
short term.
organizaciones
As
como
regards
la
long-term
UN
measures,
y
we are
otras
working
organizaciones que
with
nos ayudan y estamos
the UN, United
entrenando a
Nations, and
nuestros
other
líderes
organizations that
específicamente en
support us, and we are
liderazgo en
training our
diversidad de género.
leaders
O sea, tenemos
in
módulos
gender
o
diversity
programas que
leadership.
son
We
tanto
have
externos, pero también
training
desarrollados por el
programs
propio grupo
that
Renault, con
are
lo cual hoy por hoy
external,
la
but
presencia
we also have
del concepto
in-house
de diversidad de género en la organización
training courses,
es
gender
algo que tiene
diversity in
un
our
muy buen nivel de intensidad.
organization
Ahora me
is a very
gustaría compartirles por
intense
ahí un hecho como
item on our agenda.
digamos, que creo que grafica bien
Now let me share a story
cómo nosotros
about
de alguna manera convivimos
how
con
we
con el
live
sesgo de género y hasta de
with
alguna manera
gender
lo
bias
naturalizamos y lo normalizamos.
and how we
Esto,
sometimes
la anécdota
normalize
tiene
and
que ver con
naturalize it. This anecdote has to
una
do
situación que tuvimos en la
with
compañía
a
hace 2 años atrás.
situation we
La
had a couple
compañía
of years
estaba haciendo
ago
una inversión
at the
muy grande
company. The
para
company was
producir
making
uno
a
de nuestros
huge
productos estrella, que es
investment
el que están
to
viendo
produce one
atrás en el fondo de
of
pantalla,
our
que es nuestro
flagship
Alaskan,
products. As
de la
you
cual
can
estamos
see,
muy orgullosos. Estamos haciendo
the
el
Renault
lanzamiento
Alaskan
justamente en estas semanas.
SUV, and
Para producir ese Alaskan,
it
bueno,
has
hay un
been
montón de
recently
ingeniería por
released.
detrás, hay un
Now,
montón
to produce
de
this car,
inversiones, hay
there is a lot of
proyectos y también hay contratación de gente.
engineering,
En el
design,
momento en el cual
project
nosotros
work, and also
comenzamos a hacer la
recruitment.
contratación de todos los
When we
talentos que iban a
started
trabajar en el proyecto,
recruiting the
imagínense un proyecto como este,
talents
digamos, cuando
that
uno
would work on this
contrata
project,
800 personas. Pues
when
ese fue
you
el número de
hire, you
personas que
hire
contratamos
800 people, for
para este
instance. We
proyecto,
hired
adicionales a
800
las que
people
ya
for this
teníamos para los
project,
otros
in
vehículos que
addition
producimos.
to the colleagues that we already had for the other vehicles
El
we
dilema que se
produce.
nos planteó
So
fue que
the dilemma here was ay, avísale. No, no lo estamos escuchando.
no existían trabajos de hombres o trabajos
There
de
were
mujeres. Ese
no
fue el
women
principal
or
aprendizaje,
men
¿no? A ver,
jobs. That was the main
no sé, ¿me están
lesson
escuchando?
learned.
Perdón.
Can you
Ana
hear
María, ¿me
me?
escuchan? Ok.
There
ok,
was an
perdón.
interruption.
Bueno, no sé qué estaba
Okay,
diciendo, pero
sorry.
lo que
What I
quería
wanted to
transmitirles
say
era que
is that
el desafío y digamos,
the
romper el
challenge
mindset tuvo que ver con
and
entender que no existían trabajos para hombres o trabajos
disrupting
para mujeres.
that
Parece una cosa muy
mindset had to
básica,
do with
pero
understanding
realmente
that there
existen
is
en muchas
no
industrias hoy, en la nuestra también,
men
posiciones
or
que se
women
consideran que son
jobs.
posiciones de
In
hombres,
our
¿no?
industry,
Nosotros
there is still the
matamos ese
belief that there are
concepto,
certain positions that
salimos a
are only for
buscar
men. So we
candidatos, de
killed
los
that
800 candidatos
concept
no nos pusimos
and
un
we
target,
recruited
dijimos, bueno, que sea la mayor
candidates,
cantidad
we did not
posible,
have a
digamos, de
specific
diversidad dentro de la
target,
fábrica.
but
Entonces,
we
imagínense que una fábrica como la nuestra,
intentionally
digamos,
approach
lo que se
this
hace
with
es,
a
se
diverse
pinta, se suelda con
mindset.
soldadores y equipamientos
In
que son
our company, what we
bastante,
do
digamos,
is paint,
físicamente
weld. There are
pesados.
certain activities which are
Se trabaja en prensa, se
involve
trabaja en ensamblaje de
machinery that
piezas, con
is
lo cual
very
es un trabajo,
heavy.
digamos, con
There
bastante
is
exposición
an
física.
assembly line that
Bueno,
is
el proceso de búsqueda,
requires a lot
nosotros
of
incorporamos
physical
800
strength.
personas,
So in
tuvimos el
our
28% de contratación de
28%
mujeres que hoy están trabajando en todas las,
were women.
las
We
posiciones.
hired
De hecho, hoy
28% of women
nuestro mejor
in
soldador es
different
una mujer.
positions. Our best
Con lo
welder
cual, digamos,
now
si
is a
más
woman.
pruebas necesitamos para
So,
romper el mito, no hay
so
nada
this
mejor
is
que mostrar
proof
que nuestro mejor
that we can
soldador,
debunk
posición
this myth
de
because
exposición física, si las hay en nuestra industria, es una
welding
mujer.
is a position with a lot of
Con lo cual,
physical
digamos, la verdad
exposure,
que
and our best
yo tengo
welder
que
is
decir que
a woman in our organization.
es el
So this
coraje
clearly
y es
demonstrates
el desafío en la
our
organización
point.
a entender que muchas
It
veces
takes
nuestro
courage
propio
and
límite
it
está
takes
acá, está en
facing
nuestra
this
cabeza.
challenge. Sometimes
Así que
the
bueno,
limit
eso
is
quería compartir.
inside
Bueno, una cosa
our
muy interesante que el
minds.
momento, para que sepan, cuando
That's a
tomamos
very
25,
interesting
28% de
story I wanted
mujeres,
to
el
share with
desafío que
you.
tuvimos fue que
So
no
we
teníamos
hired
vestuarios para
28% of
ellas,
women.
con lo cual hubo
And
que hacer
one of the
vestuarios en
challenges
la
was we
fábrica,
did not have
baños
changing rooms for women.
equidistantes, ¿no? O
So
sea,
we
realmente
had
fue
to
todo un impacto para la
provide
organización
new
muy,
restrooms
muy
and
significativo.
changing
Hoy uno
rooms
lo
for
mira a
women.
la perspectiva y
This
hasta lo
was a
mira con
big change
naturalidad,
in
¿no? Hoy
perspective
camina por la
for
fábrica
our
y ve
company. Today we see it as something
los equipos
natural.
de
You
trabajo
walk along the
completamente
corridors
diversos
and
en la
you see
fábrica, en su zona de
diverse
descanso,
work
almorzando
teams
juntos,
who
hablando de
are in their
fútbol
resting
o
areas
hablando de
together.
cualquier
They
otra
are
cosa,
talking
pero digamos,
about
completamente
soccer or
integrados.
any other topic, and they are fully integrated. And it all seems so natural now. Thank you,
Por favor.
Ludovico. Thank you, Verónica. And thank you, Francisco. I would like to summarize the gist of what you have said. In the first place, we need to take note. Take note of these deep-seated ideas inside our minds, and then develop short-term and long-term plans. In the short term, we can solicit help. We can look for help and advice. And that's why we all get involved. Thank you for sharing your own perspectives about gender and a
Muchas
future
gracias, Ana
for
María.
equality. Thank you, Ana María. Thank you.
Ana María, muchas
Thank
gracias.
you, Ana Maria. And I would like to thank the three panelists for their interesting views and insights and showing how we go about changing the ways we work in our day-to-day, our companies, our processes, our offices. How do we combat gender bias? This is not something that will happen overnight. It will take time, but starting the journey is already of great value. So we have been deeply inspired by each of today's talks. And I believe that the words that have been shared will leave an imprint in us. Pretty was saying, if we persist, we can win. So don't wait for change to come from the outside. Change is among all of us and inside us. Margaret also focused on bias, but she also presented the positive side of looking at the matter. How do we talk to our daughters, our girls? Lorraine, early this morning, was talking about men and women working in partnership to fight gender bias. We need to be together in order to make progress, both men and women. She also addressed the role of technology, inclusive technology. How do we take bias into account when it comes to building technology? And she also invited us to join the Bias Correct campaign. I have seen that many of you are following this campaign on the media. We were also talking with Sherry about the power of storytelling and the importance of focusing on children. approaching them with an approaching them in a way that is not narrow-minded, that is not limited. So there is a lot to be considered and to be remembered. Key takeaways of this 12th conference. We are reaching the end of our event. We hope you have enjoyed it. We believe that the warmth of the final embrace when we finish an event is also present in this digital event. We would like to thank our sponsors for making this event possible. All our sponsors, media partners, and all the institutions that have supported us, like Uber, the Industrial Union of the Province of Buenos Aires, Women Be Solutions, and many others who have supported us. There are some people we would like to thank: Susana Álvarez Vitale, Darío González, Fernando Caracedo, Sabrina Pichel, and many, many others. Today's conference was an invitation to reflect on our biases in order to change them. We hope all of this has resonated with you. It has been a pleasure for us to be here with you. I would like to invite Maria Laura Garcia. She is a VP of the board of Vital Voices Argentina, and she will deliver the closing remarks. Thank you, Martina. This morning, we have had different perspectives and voices about gender bias. As usual, our annual conference is designed to be thought-provoking and inviting people to have a conversation. The idea is that you will multiply this so that we will be true change makers. Today, we have taken another step forward as leaders of change in building a future with equality. I would like to thank you all for being part of this.